Hi, welcome to the Interaxis YouTube channel and Interaxis.io. We've had a lot of inquiries recently, emails and Twitter and such, asking us to explain staking. Staking is, it seems like it would be an easy concept, but it's actually a pretty tough concept to get across, especially to people who are not natives in the crypto and decentralized space. To go back and explain staking, we have to move back a little bit and kind of explain proof of work versus proof of stake. Obviously in the cryptocurrency and digital asset economy, and to do that I'm going to do my best to explain it in a way that is not necessarily in a digital or cryptocurrency way, but just in a currency country way. So I apologize in advance. I'm not an economist. I don't study advanced monetary policy. I am also not a technologist, and I apologize also to my friends and everyone else in the world who is very hardcore into digital assets, decentralization, cryptocurrencies and such. I'm going to explain this in the way of actual countries and use real fiat currency to help explain it, and hopefully that'll help. Anyway, on we go. So here's kind of how proof of work versus proof of stake works. So I'm going to give a fictional example. So say Ron and Adam decide we want to start a country, right? We find this beautiful island. We say this is going to be our country. We're going to call our country Ratoria. Right? Our people are going to be Ratorians. And we say, you know what would be really important for our country is we don't want, when people come visit or the people who are going to live in our country, we don't want them to use necessarily dollars or euro or yen or anything like that. We want them to use our own currency. Okay, and our currency we're going to call the Ra. Okay, and I'm going to denote it like that. That's the Ra. Okay, so the important thing is we want people to come live here, we want them to enjoy themselves, to stay here, and we want to build a country and a community here. Part of what we would really like within our country is for people to utilize our currency called the Ra. So currently in our country it's me and Ron and our families and a beautiful island and a printing press. That's all we have. And we go, man, we really like some restaurants, we'd really like some people that are doing services like teaching kids, like cutting hair, like selling shoes, all these things that you have within a community that you really need to not only have a sense of community but a country, right? And we want to be a player in the world stage in terms of countries. And again, an important feature is we want to have people using our own currency. So what we tell people is, look, come move to Ratoria, be Ratorians with us. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn on our own printing presses, okay? And if you come here and you are let's say you're a chef, right? Or you're a barber, hairstylist, okay? Or you're a teacher, or you're an accountant, or whatever you are, come here and work for us. And as you start working, we are actually going to pay you in Ra. Okay, sorry, I did my symbol wrong. I need to stay consistent. We're going to pay you in Ra. Okay, now the nice thing is you now have bank accounts because we have the First National Bank of Ratoria, right? So we have a bank, and you can deposit your Ra into the bank, and you can have your accounts here. Now, our goal, of course, is that these people that have just moved here aren't transacting business to each other in dollars or euros or yen or anything. They're transacting their business in Ra. So when they're paying each other, they're taking money from their bank accounts and paying each other in Ra. That's what we really want. In order to do that, we have to kind of seed the economy. And again, that means when they do work, they're not working for each other at first, they're working for us as the government. And we say, you do the work, we'll pay you in Ra, because obviously you can't pay each other in Ra yet because you don't even have it. So for maybe several months, several years, whatever it takes, as people are working, we, the government, are paying them in Ra. They're going to prove to us that they're doing some sort of work. and we're going to pay them in raw such that they can put the money in their bank accounts, and then they can start paying each other. So now they don't need us to pay them as much of the raw. So the amount of raw that we have to pay them to do their work goes down, because now the chef can be cooking dinner for the barber pays him in raw, and we don't have to pay him as much. So the chef says, here, I did my work, and we go, okay, you remember last year when we would give you, 100 raw for making a meal? Now we're only going to give you 50 because the barber gave you 50 and he took it out of his bank. So now what we've done is we've created this economy, this ecosystem where everyone can start paying each other. All right, this is really important. This is essentially proof of work, right? That's what this is saying, is we are going to seed the economy. You come here and you do work for us, we're going to seed the economy. We're going to take our currency that we created out of nothing, right? All we have is a printing press. We created this economy, and we've decided we're going to pay you enough for whatever you're doing such that you can save money in our First National Bank of Rotorua, and then you can start paying each other. So as it goes on, 150, 25, as you keep doing your work, we as the government pay you less and less. And the hopes that hopefully we've done our math correctly and everything, that as more people are here, they're saving money and starting to pay each other. Why is that? Because eventually we don't have space. We don't need that many more chefs and barbers and teachers and accountants and everything. We have all that, and if people just keep coming because they're thinking they're going to get 100 raw for everything they do, not only are we going to run out of raw, we're going to devalue it, but we're going to have more accountants and teachers and barbers than we need. We're going to have one everywhere, and they're going to go, look, I did my work, give me my 100 raw. So what we have to do is lower the amount of incentive at some point, because we want the incentive for them to save and actually start paying each other and create this ecosystem. This is proof of work. Okay, that is what the Bitcoin blockchain is based on, and there are several other blockchains, of course, that are based on this. This is proof of work. This says if you do work within our ecosystem, we will pay you our currency. But over time, we're going to lower the amount we pay you for doing the same amount of work, because eventually you're just going to pay each other, and you're going to get to earn the same amount by just paying each other. And that's the goal. Now, there has to be a lot of trust. People who move here have to go, wow, we think this is going to eventually work, to the fact that we're not going to pay each other eventually we're not going to pay each other in dollars and euros and everything else anymore. We're just going to use raw. Now, those same people, not only are they surviving and enjoying life on our beautiful island, okay, but here's the rub, they have to exist in the entire world, right? They can't just sit there on our island, and our island can't exist in a vacuum on its own, right? So anyway, that's proof of work, and again, that's what Bitcoin is based on. We might say, look, we're only ever going to issue 21 million raw, and therefore, as this number of 150, 25 has to continue to go down, so eventually you guys can just fund yourselves and fund your own lives. Okay, so that's proof of work. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting, because eventually we realize, or maybe we've realized from the beginning, because hopefully we're smart people, that raw does not exist in a vacuum. Yes, it's an island, but we have to utilize goods and services and money and everything from the rest of the world in order to exist, right? So we as we've said, we're going to issue 21 million raw, right? But we say, look, we need people to come invest in our country. As we said, we don't need any more teachers and chefs and accountants and everything else. We have pretty much all we need to exist within our little ecosystem. But what we need to make sure is our currency stays somewhat stable within our ecosystem, right? That means when people are buying things like bread, shoes, milk, TVs, etc. Okay, these we all probably have to buy potentially from another country. That means that we are somewhat beholden to other currencies, like the euro and the dollar and the yen. Okay, we're beholden to some of these currencies because we're going to have to buy from those countries. So not only do we have to make sure that our raw is stable within our own country, that when people are paying each other, that the amount of raw they pay for a haircut this week is roughly the same as they pay next week and the week after and the week after. But we need to make sure that what they pay for goods like bread and shoes and milk and TVs is roughly the same with a little bit of inflation. And the only way to do that is to make sure that the raw keeps pace with the euro and the dollar and the yen and such and these other currencies around the world, because we're going to have to buy goods from them, right? So when we buy bread or when we buy shoes from another country, okay, that have been produced there, they're going to sell it to us, and we're not going to necessarily be able to pay them in raw, or we can pay them in raw, but they have to go, okay, how much is that worth in dollars or in yen, because we're going to have to change it at our own bank, right? So when we get shoes going from, we'll call it Japan to Ratoria, so the shoes go this way, we're going to send them raw, and over here they're going to take their raw and convert it to yen. So they need to make sure that this exchange rate is somewhat easy for them, and what we need to make sure is that this number to this number stays roughly the same, because they might quote us in yen. They might say it's 100 yen for these shoes, and we go, okay, we know exactly how much raw that is, because we can't risk 1 week 100 yen is worth 100 raw, and the next week 100 yen is 200 raw, because that's going to make our shoes much more expensive for our citizens, and all of a sudden the currency that they have isn't going to buy them nearly as much. And that's huge inflation. That's some of the problems that have plagued countries like Argentina and Venezuela and such, that there's such huge inflation that they can't afford basic things. So now we go, okay, what do we do to make sure that our raw not only is used within our own country, but it keeps up with the currencies of these other countries? That's where we get into what's called proof of stake. So we have to give some incentive, not only to people for people originally to come here and work for their money. We have to give some incentive for people from other countries to convert some of their currency into raw and to hold it potentially in our banks. So how do we do that? What we say is, okay, look, we have enough people working, right? We have the accountants and the bookkeepers and the barbers and everything else. Here's what we don't have. Now all these people are trading money back and forth all the time, and what we need is kind of bookkeeping. We need help with keeping track of all the transactions, right? And we will reward you for that with more raw. But here's how we're going to reward you. You can take your euros and dollars and yen and whatever, and we want you to convert that to raw. Okay, and then you are going to deposit raw in the we're going to call it the raw depository, right? And this is somewhat a little bit different from the bank. And when your raw is in the raw depository, you can't take it out for quite a while. But here's what we're going to do: every day we're going to have a little lottery, right? And we're going to number some ping pong balls 1 to 100. And we're going to add up everything in the raw depository, all the raw that are in there, based on all the accounts. And whatever percentage of the raw depository you have, you get that number of ping pong balls, okay? So if Alice, if one day there's, we'll call it 100,000 raw in this depository that people can't take out, Alice has taken her euros and converted them raw. She says, look, I'm going to help out the country of Ratoria, and I'm hopefully going to get paid for my work. I'm going to take my money out of euros, put it in raw, put it in this depository, because this country needs me to help them, right? So Alice, out of this $100,000, let's say she has 45,000 of them. And Bob has 25,000 of them, okay? So Alice, on this particular day, might get ping pong balls 1 through 45. Bob is going to get 46 through 70, and so on and so forth, right? So on this particular day, we throw all these ping pong balls in a hopper, we pick one out, and it just so happens we pick out number 50, right? That's Bob's. So you say, okay, Bob, these people have all paid each other for today. Some people got a haircut, some people got taught something, someone had dinner at a restaurant cooked by a chef, whatever it might be. Bob, we need you to help clear all these transactions. And Bob says, sure, I'm glad to help. Bob's number got picked. So every time there's a day goes by and we need help clearing the transactions, we're going to hand out, we'll call it 10 Ra every time that happens. Bob won today. He had 25,000 in there. We said, Bob, all right, today you get 10 more Ra. So tomorrow Bob has 25,010 Ra in his account. So he has a slightly higher percentage and a slightly higher percentage. That is essentially proof of stake. We've told these people, look, convert your other currencies to ours, hold it in our depository for a while because we need some help. And what we need is people to, we need to stabilize this exchange rate. And the only way we're going to do that is if your people are willing to take their country's currency or their region's currency and convert it into ours and hold on to it for a while. We say, okay, we're going to reward you for that by, of course, letting you clear the transactions, but most importantly, we're going to reward you with more of our currency. We're going to print a little bit more and give you some of that because that's what we need help with, so that not only can we stabilize within our own ecosystem, but we have to stabilize within the world. And that's how we're going to do it. We're going to say, look, if you all will convert some of your currency into ours, hold it in our depository, we might give you a little bit of reward. That is staking. Okay, that is proof of stake. So I'm kind of loaning you my money for a time being. I'm converting my euros to Ra, loaning it to you. And then there's going to be this lottery system. I might win and I might not, but I'm giving myself a chance. And the more I convert, the more of a chance I give myself. So that is proof of stake. I had to explain this. In the next video, I'll talk about what staking is. Okay, this is obviously one form of staking that says I'm going to take my currency, in a lot of cases my cryptocurrency, and I'm going to stake it. I'm going to hold it in some sort of mechanism, some sort of depository, and at some point I might get rewarded with more based on the percentage of my ownership. All right, so in the next video I'll actually talk about how staking works, delegated proof of stake, things like that. So, but this, I wanted to highlight the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, and hopefully I did it in an eloquent enough way that people will kind of understand how it fits, and I'll continue kind of with this example in the next video. Again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Find our website at interaxis.io. On Twitter, we're at interaxis8, the number 8. Our email is info@interaxis.io. Send us an email. Let us know how we're doing. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video.